Breaking news olunaku olwaleero abakozi babiri aba Manafwa District Local Government basindikiddwa e Maluku basobola okuba nga ate beebakayo okumala emyaka 2 mirambirira n'okuba nti basasula essente eziwerera ddala akawumbi kamu obukadde 1.6 billion. Story eri emabega w'ensonga zino egamba nti Chief Finance Officer Muyite Michael Bichacha saako ne Principal Human Resource Officer ono nga yatwala abakozi oba yatwala okurekrutinga abakozi ku district ye Manafwa mwana mwala Betty Namono. Kigambibwa nti bafune sente akawumbi nga kamu obukadde 600 nga baba bujja mu Duckhill Microfinance nenga bakozesa olukujjukujju oba kiyite false pretense. Kakati babadde bawoza Duckhill Microfinance nga yabawabira omusango okuba nti babajjako sente mu lukujjukujju naye olunaku olwaleero omulamuzi oluvannyuma lw'okuba nti yabasingisa omusango olunaku olwaleero Chief Magistrates Court olunaku olwaleero babasentensinze era nga bagenda kuba bamala mu kkomera emyaka 2 mirambirira saako n'okuba nti omulamuzi abalagidde basobola okuba nga ate basasula sente ezo akawumbi kamu obukadde 600. Kakati oluvannyuma lw'ekyo omulamuzi abagambye nti bemulugunya nti asaze bubi baddemba okuba nga ate beeyongerayo mu kooti eya waggulu bagiyite high court basobole okuba nga ate bafuna obwenkanya baba balowooza nti asaliriza omusango guno. Kakati olunaku olwaleero twagala tukulaga tetugenda kulaga mulamuzi olw'ensonga ezimu nti kooti olunaku olwaleero basaze ne bagamba nti omulamuzi mugenda mututunuza mu kamera naye tugenda kuwa ensala yonna nga weebadde ne proceedings zonna nga wezibadde mu kooti olunaku olwaleero wano mu Mbale City. Katukulaga emboozi eno yonna nga weebadde ku Mbale Express TV.
So here is the sentence and reasons. Upon conviction of the offense of obtaining credit by false pretenses, contrary section 288A of the Penal Code Act, that is Cap 128, the offender is liable up to 2 years imprisonment. This is pursuant to section 22 of the Penal Code Act in regard to the general punishment for misdemeanors, which is to the effect that when in this code no punishment is specifically provided for any misdemeanor, it shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. And upon conviction of the offense of conspiracy to defraud, that is contrary to section 289 of the Penal Code Act, the offender is liable up to 3 years imprisonment. A1 was charged with the offense of obtaining credit on count 1, and both A1 and A2 are charged with the offense of conspiracy to defraud on count 2. Before imposing a sentence, the courts have to assess a proper scale. The guiding principles are contained in the sentencing guidelines of 2013 and in case laws and the circumstances of the case assessed on a case-by-case basis. The key factors for consideration are the gravity of the offense, the brutality upon which it was committed, the prevalence of the offense, and these are some of the factors necessary for consideration. Only one of the aforementioned factors among others, when present, is sufficient to warrant a maximum penalty. In the instant case, the convicts A1 obtained credit worth 1,600,000,000 by fraud and or false pretenses from the complainant while conspiring with A2. By its magnitude, it deprived the complainant of its hard-earned money, depriving him of the right to own property, which right is enshrined and protected by the Constitution. The act of the convicts therefore subjected the complainant, stroke the victim, to enormous mental stress and anguish. By that, it is a grave offense which this court condemns, and as prayed by the prosecution, which this court agrees with, they deserve a heavier sentence upon which they can be deterred, and a strong message needs to be sent to the public to desist from such actions such as the likes of the convicts. The society also needs to be protected by the unscrupulous actions or conduct of the convicts. They therefore deserve an appropriate sentence. The severity of the sentence may be reduced based on the mitigating factors of each particular case, the fact that the convicts are first offenders. The value of the subject matter is also considered. The age of the convicts are also considered. And also, the remorsefulness of the convict is considered. All the mitigating factors pleaded by the defense for each of the convicts has been considered. In view of the foregoing, the law is that for first offenders, the courts may be lenient to them and save them from harsh sentences and give them reformatory sentences so that they can reform and be useful to the society. I have considered the convicts, and they are persons who may not reoffend, and therefore this court will be lenient to give them a sentence that will help them reform. In the circumstances, therefore, I sentence each of you as follows. On count 1, I sentence you, Namono Betty, to 12 months imprisonment for the offense of obtaining credit by false pretenses, that is contrary section 288A of the Penal Code Act. On count 2, I sentence you, Namono Betty A1, to 12 months imprisonment for the offense of conspiracy to defraud, contrary to section 289 of the Penal Code Act. And on count 2, I sentence you, Bichacha Michael, to 12 months imprisonment for the offense of conspiracy to defraud, contrary to section 289 of the Penal Code Act. The sentences on count 1 and 2 shall run concurrently for A1, and the sentences to be served less the period spent on remand. For A1, she has spent 1 month and 25 days on remand, and for A2, he has spent 1 month and 17 days on remand. So A1 shall serve 10 months and 5 days in prison, and A2 shall serve 10 months and 13 days in prison. On the issue of compensation, in the instant case, the prosecution provided that the complainant was defrauded of 1,600,000,000, which the Inspectorate of Government described as undeserving deductions from Manafwa District Local Government to the complainant, for which the complainant was ordered to refund, and indeed, the same was refunded. There is therefore no doubt that the complainant suffered financial loss. On this note, A2 in mitigation pleaded that he only benefited in the sum of 26 million, as was proved by the prosecution. And I find that this is a proper case that deserves an order of compensation. And next for this court to determine is the quantum or amount of compensation. Section 197 of the Magistrates Courts Act does not impose any such limitation to the compensation, and thus this power should be exercised only in appropriate cases. Such a jurisdiction cannot be exercised at the whims and caprice of the magistrate. There is nothing like a power without any limits or constraints. That is so even when a court may be vested with wide discretionary power, for even discretion has to be exercised only along well-recognized and sound juristic principles, with a view to promoting fairness, including transparency and aiding equity. Thus, an order for compensation should only be made with restraint and with caution. In the instant case, I have considered the quantum of the compensation in light of the nature of the offense for which the accused persons were convicted, the loss suffered, the justness of claim by the victim, and the ability of the accused person to pay. Thus, pursuant to Section 197 of the Magistrates Courts Act, as amended, a magistrate's court is empowered in the exercise of its criminal jurisdiction or discretion to award compensation to any person who has suffered loss or injury by the offense, when in the opinion of the court, such compensation would be recoverable by such person in a civil court. The practical efficacy and immediacy of the order helps to preserve the confidence of society in the criminal justice system. I hereby order that the convicts A1 and A2 compensate the complainant to the tune of 1,600,000,000 in the following terms. 1. That A1 Namonobet shall pay a total sum of 1,574,000,000 shillings as compensation to the complainant for the financial loss incurred. And 2. A2, that is Bichacha Michael, shall pay a total sum of 26 million shillings as compensation to the complainant for the loss incurred. I so order. You have the right of appeal within 14 days to the High Court if you are dissatisfied.